Yeah, definitely shows Facebook Live. I can see that here on the screen. Let's see if it's showing on my Facebook Live, on my Facebook page. So is it under Omar Showtime?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, and we're about to get started. All right. Good evening and welcome to another edition of Showtime TV. I'm your host, Omar Rashada. This is a series and look at politics in 2020. And my special guest, she's running once again for the 4th seat of the City Council, 4th District. We have Michelle Harlee. Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me, Omar.
No problem, no problem. Okay, then let's, for those who may not know you, just talk about your background, your education and background and what you do in terms career-wise.
Okay, so first of all, I want to start off by saying I am Michelle Harlee, and I represent the 4th Councilmatic District, which encompasses the Port of Wilmington, Southbridge, the Riverfront, Christina Landing, Justice Landing, all of downtown, the business district, the businesses, as well as the residents that live there, a portion of the east side, south of 9th Street, and then it goes up 9th Street to Walnut Street, down to the Public Works Building west of Walnut. And then it runs down along the Brandywine, which is south of the Brandywine, which is a community there called Midtown Brandywine. And then it goes up to 95, the east side of 95, over to 8th Street between Adams and West. Which is Trinity Vicinity and a slither of West Center City. So I always like to at least allow people to know what are the communities that make up the 4th District. And I just want to say that I am very honored to represent one of the most dynamic and diverse districts in the city of Wilmington out of all 8. As it relates to me, Omar, I am a Wilmington native. I work at DuPont. I've been at DuPont for 30 plus years. I started in marketing, moved to finance, and I'm now in the procurement organization. And my role now is a ISO 9001 certified auditor. So that's what I'm doing for DuPont right now. I volunteer there as a mentor and coach for our interns and our co-ops that we recruit from colleges and universities. I also volunteer for DuPont as it relates to the food bank and read aloud in places where DuPont is called upon to do some volunteer work. I'm also a member of New Destiny Fellowship Church, where Bishop Weeks is the pastor. I've been a member of that particular church all of my adult life. I've had the awesome opportunity to be responsible for 4 of the major 4 departments within my church for the last 20 plus years. And of course, not managing all of them at one time, but throughout the last 20 years, I've had the right responsibility of making sure the operations of the departments were running effectively and most definitely proficiently. I've had the opportunity to put together many curriculums for my church, for the education department, for a new members department. And I've just basically been very involved in my church. And I also sit on the board, and I've been a board member of New Destiny Fellowship Church for 25 plus years. And last but not least, I'm a grassroots community person. I was the president of the Civic Association on the East Side for 10 to 15 years. I sat on the board for Stepping Stones Credit Union. I was a board member for 2 years. I was the president of the 4th District Neighborhood Planning Council. I've sat on the 4th Ward Wilmington City Committee for the last 10 years, which is our political party, the Democratic party, that is the committee that actually helps to get the vote out. I've also sat on the strategic planning committee for the East Side Blueprint. So I am truly a grassroots community person. And so between my professional experience, my spiritual orientation, and being a grassroots community person, that is what has fueled my campaign back in 2016, and what motivated me to one, to come and make a difference for the people, especially within the 4th District.
Yeah, and you're in your first tenure as city council. This is going on for 4 years. Since being a councilwoman in the 4th District, what have you learned about being a city council person?
I'll be perfectly honest with you. I am just so grateful for my experience at DuPont. As I share with you, I've been there for 30 plus years. And just knowing that in itself, it has allowed me and taught me how to work with different people from all different backgrounds, different levels, managers, directors, colleagues, and also being very involved in church, which deals, allows you to deal with different people from all backgrounds. So I really can say that my experience and training in both of those areas pretty much prepared me for city council, as it relates to having to work in solidarity with everyone, and knowing how to stand, on my own 10 toes, but yet again, working in solidarity and just trying to do my part to, number one, first and foremost, represent the people that elected me, but at the same time, work in unity with my council colleagues, with the council president, along with the administration, along with the private sector, as well as the third sector, meaning, government, businesses, and our nonprofit organizations. So that has been my experience. And like I said, I'm very grateful for what I was able to bring to the seat, as it relates to knowing how to work in solidarity with everyone and to get things done for the people that elected me. So it was very important for me to be, that person on the council.
I want to talk about legislation. I had one of your cohorts on last week, Rashima Dixon, was city councilor at large. I want to ask you a similar question that I asked her. I know you've passed a lot of legislation, but if it's just like 2 or 3 legislation that you think that stand out, that you're most proud of, if you can mention that. And then also, I watch your meetings here and there.
Yes.
The city council meetings, and then I see Councilman Sam Guy express the notion that his legislation was ignored, it wasn't put on the table. So my 2-part question is, for you is, what are some legislation that you're most proud of, and then what is the process of legislation? I mean, is it guaranteed that if you give a legislation that it won't be passed? I mean, what's the process?
So can I answer the first
Oh, you
question?
can, whatever. This is all you. This is all you.
I
This
definitely
is your
want to
time.
mention the legislation that comes to mind that I feel most proud of. One, immediately once becoming elected within 20, I think in the year of 2017, I was able to identify a cost savings for the city of Wilmington, which the impact would definitely be for the taxpayers. It was identifying the fact that our 300 to 400 summer youth, as well as the temp employees and some of the regular City of Wilmington employees, were still getting paper checks. I reached out to our treasurer to find out, like, why, in this age are we still issuing checks? And so
Yeah.
when we did the math, we learned that there was a $72,000 year over year savings if we move from paper checks to direct deposit. Because when you think about where did the cost come from, well, number one, you have administrative costs, just running checks. And then you had check handlers, people that actually had to take the checks from one site to another for the summer youth. And then you had a number of checks that would get lost. So we would have to pay for FedEx, UPS, making sure that checks get to people in a timely manner. So that definitely is one of of the pieces of legislation that I'm most proud of, because I really feel as though, being a community leader and an elected official, we should be thinking about ways where we can um, uh, drive down the costs to make sure it doesn't we don't end up increasing the taxes for taxpayers. So that savings was huge to me.
And you would think
Um,
they were done that many years ago, because all the companies, do direct deposits.
so
That's
to
30
be
years ago.
And they did. Let me just say this. So I actually, when I came up with that, I did learn, like, in the 90s, they initiated that. So they
Right.
got, like, people from one period of time to another. But then as you get new people to come in and get hired, new employees, those were the people from the city that had to be transitioned from the paper. But the summer youth, for whatever reason, they were never transition over to direct deposit. And I also want to mention
Mhm.
that part of that initiative was also sharing financial literacy with our young people, showing them how to manage a checking account, showing them and teaching them about financial management and literacy. So that was definitely a big piece of legislation. And then another piece was a fair process as it relates to us selecting a candidate or an applicant once we had a vacant seat. So we had two vacant seats with this 107th session. Our first district seat became vacant, as well as our seventh district. But when our first district seat became vacant, the process that they used to have, I thought, it really wasn't a process that allowed all 13 council members to share input. So in other words, they had a process where the president of the council selected four other people. Those five people looked at the applicants and made recommendations. So the legislation that I sponsored said, how about all 13 council members being a part of the committee, and we all look at the applications and we all make a recommendation. So that was an amendment that I feel pretty good about, because at the end of the day, we all are elected to represent be a part of the legislative body. So I feel pretty good about that. So by the time we filled the seat for the seventh district, that process was in place and it ran very, very smoothly. That's the second piece of legislation. And then the legislation I sponsored recently is definitely dealing with how businesses can legally donate unsold food to shelter facilities and nonprofit organizations. So in other words, today, businesses, they just discard food. They're not allowed to give it away for a number of reasons. And as you know, we have a lot of homelessness. We have a lot of people that, could use that food. So I partnered with one of the nonprofits that I work with, that we work with the homeless population. And so we work together, and I sponsored the resolution to urge the General Assembly to pass that legislation. So when the Acme, or when Whole Foods, or whenever these particular businesses have food that they're going to discard, we can now give it to people that really could use it. So we will be solving a problem.
I was riding on the east side today because I know I had this interview.
Hmm.
I want to talk about housing.
Sure.
I came up one street, I looked to my
Hmm.
right, and I looked at Bennett Street. Man,
Hmm.
that's like almost a whole row of houses that is boarded up. And I rode around different other sections. I see boarded up houses.
Hmm.
Um, what is your plan, or maybe you already had a plan in terms of improving the housing conditions on the east side? Because one boarded up home is too much. Because you got a lot of homeless people here, like you said, and man, people need places to stay.
I agree with that 100%. Instead of us, I guess, talking about what I've already done, I'll just kind of flick over to 2020. And one of the goals for 2020 is definitely dealing with neighborhood revitalization. Neighborhood revitalization is definitely going to be key to, number one, making sure that or my constituents or the citizens of Wilmington, that they really take advantage, number one, of our homestead program. We have a homestead program. We have the land bank program that is a wonderful program. As you know, the homestead is $1. They have a selection process, and when they conduct those workshops, they actually have all the different components on site that would be needed around financing, around construction companies, where that is one way that we could definitely improve our neighborhoods is through the homestead program and also through the land bank program. And as it relates to the Bennett Street project, it is my hopes and it is my wishes that the real estate and housing work with the other investors for us to really get those houses back on the market and hopefully get some homeowners in those homes and get sold.
Right now, in your district, I know you say you have part of the east side. Is Hurley and Compton Towers, or are they part of your district?
Yes, so I have more senior high rises in the fourth district than any other district. So that was one of my platforms running in 2016, was to offer more support, services and programs to those seniors in those high rises. Again, we have Hurley, Compton, Windsor, and Sacred Heart. All four of those senior high rises are in the fourth district. And so I have partnered with the AARP during this COVID, partnering with the food bank, partnering with Charity Crossing, just making sure that our seniors, they have information, that they have resources, and they definitely, have an advocate as it relates to just understanding what their needs are.
Yeah, and I love the notion because I did work with mental health clients, and some of them stay in Compton and Hurley, but they were saying that they were having COPD testing. I think that's excellent because you're bringing the testing to them.
Yes, yes. Speaking of the COVID testing, I sort of got ahead of the whole I guess when the curve, like late May, early June, I was just kind of keeping an eye on the statistics, checking them out on a regular basis. And when I kept hearing how the numbers, wasn't looking good, especially on the east side, I took the initiative to reach out to St. Francis, and I actually was able to sponsor and partner with St. Francis and Easy on Mount Carmel to bring the mobile van over to the parking lot to make sure that my constituents on the east side that could not afford the testing could make sure that they got tested. So that was definitely a very successful turnout. And I say successful because the doctor told me from the beginning that they could only service about 200, and we were able to service all the people that showed up on that particular day.
That's awesome. Now, there's a place that may have been around possibly about a year. It's right across the street from Easton Church. It used to be the Layton home.
Yes.
What's the name of that place? And I know that's in your district. Did you work with those residents as well?
Absolutely. I had the awesome opportunity to be involved with helping to get local workers to work on the Pearl Center. It's called the Pearl Center. Yes, it's called the Pearl Center.
I can think of it, right?
Yes, yes. So I was involved before getting elected. I was involved in the Community Benefits Agreement Committee that talked about and agreed on making sure that we got workers from that community to work on that project. So this was before I even got elected. So once getting elected, that whole project carried over before I got elected into me getting elected. And so I had the opportunity again to jump back in and make sure that the developer did what they said that they were going to do. So the Pearl Center is a beautiful place, and is for veterans, and it's veterans that have families as well. So
there's veterans who need housing as big. There's a lot of veterans that's homeless as well. Yeah, so that's a good thing. I want to talk about violence because there's been some shootings, and I think there's some deaths, like maybe 1 or 2 deaths in the east side area. Public safety has always been an issue over the last, I don't know, maybe 20 years or even longer than that. So as city councilwoman, what plans did you take in place in terms of public safety and the things that you want to improve in within the next 4 years if reelected?
Okay, so let me start with what I already did and
Okay.
what I plan to do. So, as a civic leader, excuse me, as a community leader, I took this class. It's called the Citizens Police Academy class, where you can actually go to the public safety building, and it's for citizens. It's an 8-week class for you to understand how the strategies and plans and how they deploy police officers. So I went to that class. It was an 8-week class because I was a civic association president and I wanted to get information to take back to the community because I always feel as though everybody has a part to play. So that was the first thing that I did. And then, secondly, um, in the first quarter of this year, I hosted a community meeting. I hosted a community meeting at Easy on Mount Carmel Church because I noticed the uptick in shootings got started like in the second quarter of 2019 into the third quarter, and by the fourth quarter, I really felt as though we had to do something as elected officials. So I took the lead working with my council colleagues. I took the lead on organizing a meeting with the attorney general, with the chief of police, and with our mayor. And we put out about 1,000 flyers, even though it was primarily for the fourth district. I knew that this was something that impacted the whole city. So we put flyers throughout the whole city. We had a great turnout. We had about 200 people from throughout the city, different organizations. And the purpose of that was to basically ask the community to share with us any suggestions that they had as it related to how we could promote safer neighborhoods, working with the entities that are already in place with our chief of police, with our attorney general, and how can we work together? And so leading that effort was pretty huge because we took the information from that meeting and we turned it into 4 committees that are going to be ongoing. So what the community said that they felt would be helpful in terms of promoting safer neighborhoods is, one, is that we have to address our youth in terms of more services, in terms
Right.
of programming for our youth, because we all know that when we are making money, we're not thinking about committing crimes. Okay.
Right.
So we have to get more funding from the state for our youth around services and programs. The second area that they said that they wanted us to focus on was education, as it relates to the educational outcomes that are currently um, taking place within our Wilmington city schools. There needs to be more work done around that. So even though I know as a city council legislator, and the city has no direct impact with education because we know that that's under the governor, right? But we can be advocates, and I have been an advocate, for education. And then the other area was mental health and community policing. So again, these were the 4 areas that we talked about. And then, of course, depending on what's happening, and like you said, this youth violence, starting with July the 2nd, when the young lady, I believe her name was Nakisha
Okay.
Richardson, July the 2nd, she lived on the east side. The shootings just seemed like it's been an uptick in shooting since July. So one of my constituents that live in Trinity vicinity wanted to know, hey, we need to do something right away. So it's funny that you and I connected and you're asking this question because we had our first meeting on last Friday. We had our meeting on last Friday in terms of, and the topic was youth violence and what are we going to do and who's doing what. So we had former chief of police Bobby Cummins on that call.
Okay.
We had Corey Priest on that call. We had Jerry Lucas from the Peacekeepers on that call. And of course, yours truly, and a number of people were invited to be on the call. But it was very informative as it relates to finding out who was doing what. Daryl Chambers was invited. But of course, sometimes when you are out in the community trying to put out fires, you can't always be at every meeting, but he's committed to being a part of, the solution. So I'm at the table, and I am trying to um, be, just have my eyes and ears open as it relates to what can I do, and how can I use my influence to be a part of the solution. But as we know, Omar, youth and social services is under the state. So I was really happy to have, Bobby Cummins on the line, to have
Right.
Corey on the line, because they were able to share what, some of the programs are. And this is a conversation, of course, that we're going to continue, but to have started it, I think, is major. And this is concerned citizens. It's just people coming together, basically wanting to do something, and to find out what we all can do to move the needle as it relates to this youth violence, because it's not a silver bullet. We know that it's a lot that goes into what's happening as it relates to the families, as it relates to, the children didn't get jobs this year. Usually we give about, what, 300 to 400 summer youth jobs.
Right.
So there's things that people are doing, that, behind the scenes, and these conversations are going to continue. And like I said, we had our first meeting on last Friday, and we're going to continue to see how we can strengthen each other's organization, look at what everybody is doing, and like, how can we come together and maximize services and resources versus reinventing the wheel. I really don't think that we need to start another program, even with WCAC. City Council, we allot funding every year to the Wilmington WCAC. Gwen Angelette, I'm sure you know Gwen Angelette. Um, she is a consultant that's working with other youth organizations, Richard Raw, and Connect, and some of these other youth programs. So we're just trying to bring all the right people around the table to see what we can do, and how we can really be a resource to make a difference with our young people. So those are the things that I'm involved in, Omar.
Right. That's a lot. Got your hands full.
Yes, yes, I
You
do. I really do. I
know,
really do.
before I move to my next point, I remember growing up in the 80s and the 90s. The
Hmm.
East Side, you had Warner Streetwide. And Warner Streetwide is still there, but I would say back in the 80s and the 90s, it was more of a community based. You had the kids going there playing basketball, doing this, that, and the other. You also had people settlement.
Hmm.
So that maybe have some type of a resource center for the youth can help. But I want to go back to the city council meetings. And like I said, I
Okay.
watch those meetings from time to time, and they can
Okay.
be very, very tense.
Okay.
A lot of meetings that I watched, it seemed like it was
Yes.
personal with the
Okay.
attacks.
Okay.
So I want to ask you, I'm actually the same question I asked Rashima.
Okay.
Are there times after the meetings when you go home and you say, OMG, what did I get myself involved with all this turmoil and bittering back and forth? How do you feel when councils are going back and forth?
I it doesn't give me a good feeling at all, because, I want to respect everyone for how they feel in their opinions. And I think, as an elected official, you should feel like you can say what you want to say. But I'm just a person that I do feel as though decorum matters. I do feel as though it's not just what you say, but it is how you say it. And I think all of that matters, in that if there are situations that need to be discussed and handled, there's like 80% of some of that bickering, bashing, and bantering should be taking place privately. I
Right.
think it definitely should be taking place privately and not publicly. And it does, make me feel very sad at times, because we are also leaders. If you're an elected official, whether you see yourself as a leader or not, we're viewed as leaders. And I don't think that is modeling and mirroring, the most positive examples, not only, for adults, but most certainly not for any of our young people that are watching us. So I'm looking forward to that changing. And I've always, asked a question to my leader, if there's anything that I can do, to bring more unity, to help, bring us more, to have more synergy, energy, and unity, please let me know. So I've always been a proponent of being more unified.
Right, right. But also just looking from the outside, one of the most discouraging things that I see is it's more like a constructive criticism in city council meetings is that the public comments starts at 6 o'clock and then the
Hmm.
public are coming out, they're speaking, and all the council members are not there. So it's like, I mean, if they have a concern to express in that particular district,
Hmm.
and the city council man or woman is not there, I mean, it's kind of to defeat the purpose. So as a councilwoman, do you
Hmm.
agree with the notion that all city council uh, individuals should be should be there at 6 o'clock to listen to the concerns of the community?
Omar, absolutely. And I have to admit that there have been times due to my 8 to 5 job that I
Mhm.
could not always be there at six
Right.
o'clock. And because we know two things, that you can watch the video and we can't respond. So, not that it's an excuse, I'm just explaining how, there are other alternatives to hearing the public when they come and share their public comments. So, that 6 o'clock hour, we can't respond, it's just listening. So since all of our meetings are taped, we also have the opportunity to listen to what I feel as though my constituents and the citizens of Wilmington, what they have to say. So one, because you're not physically in a seat does not mean that you're not hearing what our residents are saying. That's number one. And then number two, I do believe that if any way possible, we can be there, that we should, because it does look, probably they don't know what the reasons are if we're not there. So of course, a lot of times, there's always say there's a force out there will make people think the worst. They don't always think that someone had an emergency or someone, was getting off from their job. And I had to even make a commitment to do better. And I think most of us, realized that it was a concern from the community, and we all, I think we upped our ante as it related to trying to be in those seats at 6 o'clock.
Today was a big day. Well, I guess you can call it Greenville, Delaware, where
Yes,
uh, presidential candidate Mr. Joe Biden
yes,
introduced his vice president Kamala
yes,
Harris. So I want
yes,
to ask, so I want to ask you, as an African American woman,
yes.
what does it mean for this country to have his first African American vice president candidate? And then my second question to is, as an African American elected official yourself, does the nomination of Kamala Harris gives you inspiration as an African American woman and wanting to be mayor, be governor, or how does it affect you personally as an African American elected official?
Oh, so I want to answer that on two fronts. So first of all, I'm going to answer it on the front of I am as ecstatic over the fact that Kamala was selected for a number of reasons. If any of them were, all of them were awesome
Right.
women. Let me just say that. I think that she is going to definitely be a good balance for our next president, as it relates to being fearless. She's very smart. I think she's very strategic. I think that she is exactly what our party needs as it relates to the experience that she's bringing to the table, in terms of what her leadership and the different capacities that she has led being a public servant. So I think number one, we're getting one of the best, we're getting one of the smartest, we're getting one of the most experienced out of the ones that were being considered. And as a Black woman, absolutely, I'm feeling like once again, I'm around to see history being made. As it relates to our first African American vice president, soon to be, hopefully, vice president. And so that's how I feel as it relates to her being the candidate selected. And then as it relates to me personally, Already felt like, if I wanted to aspire to go to the top, that I already had the wherewithal within me. I feel as though I've been trained by the best to like I said, to go as far as I would want to go. So I'm ecstatic. I'm over the hill, excited about Kamala, but I'm happy to see another woman of color be put in that position. And I think that is sending out a great message to other younger women, all women, actually, as you said, to aspire to be whatever you want to be. So it's a great day. It's a great day on every level today as it relates to Kamala being the announced candidate to run for vice president.
Right. The Black Lives Matter movement is a big thing now. Since the death of Mr. George Floyd, there's been a
Mhm.
lot of protests across not only the United States of America, but across the world. Here in Wilmington, Delaware, we had numerous protests that were led by local Black Lives Matter movement. What is your take on the Black Lives Matter movement? Do you support it? Do you don't support it? What's your take?
So, Black Lives Matter, from what I'm learning about Black Lives Matter, there's all different angles of Black Lives Matter.
Mhm.
Okay. I've had the opportunity to be a part of a peace march a couple weeks ago. And so that particular march, I thought, was definitely purposeful as it related to marching to encourage the community to put down the guns, to increase the peace in our neighborhoods. But as it relates to the Black Lives Matters message, in terms of Black Lives Matter, of course, as a Black woman, that I have Black men in my family. I have grandsons, and so when I think about the fact that they can be, a part of some of the atrocities that has have happened, that Black Lives Matter is trying to represent and trying to bring about changes as it relates to criminal reform. I'm all for that. I support that 100%. When we experienced the global protests locally and globally, I was right there wanting to find out, well, how can we implement, those the eight can't wait, um what were they calling them, like commitments, the eight can't wait commitments that was being circulated around different municipalities. My colleague Chris Johnson, Councilman Chris Johnson, I applaud him for the work that he got right on, in terms of the research and finding out, what we could do as a council. So we were able to sponsor some legislation. I'm not sure if you're aware of it or not, but City Council has already sponsored, and we're in the process of sponsoring legislation around criminal reform, because we definitely support it. I support Black Lives Matter, especially from the angle of, no chokeholds, no knees on the neck. And I mean, I think, it's been too long that we have not made more improvements in this area. And I personally, one of my angsts is the fact that, the Police Bill of Rights, that's one of the major problems with how, the bad actors are getting away. And let me just say this, that I believe that there's more good officers, especially in the city of Wilmington, Delaware. I can't speak for no other city because I live in Wilmington. So I want to say I believe that we have more um, good police than bad police. But when I learned that Delaware is one of the three out of all 50 states, where it's only three states that have the Bill of Rights, that still have the Bill of Rights, which is part of the reason, again, as to how these bad actors are getting away and getting off the hook with their behavior. So I really would love to see us get rid of the Bill of Rights, because if 47 other states don't need it, why would little small Delaware need it?
Right. Right, right. Okay, so right now you're campaigning, you're going door to door. What are some of the key issues, the common key issues that some of the residents are expressing to you?
Okay, so as I share with you, in the first quarter, we had the meeting, and the majority of the residents and the people that showed up at the meeting were from my district. And in addition to that, of course, I go to civic association meetings via Zoom as of March. Um, and I'm also very involved with our neighborhood planning council, which all the presidents from every civic association, they come together and they talk about, what's going on in their communities. So the number one issue, the number one concern. Well, let me step back and say the fourth district is the most diverse district. Okay, so every community almost in the fourth district um, have a different concern. So when you look at, let's say, Southbridge and the east side, the needs over there would definitely be, we need more youth services, we need more programming, we need more mental health services in Southbridge and on the east side, and we definitely need more jobs. Now I had the awesome opportunity to interject a opportunity for my Southbridge constituents. I'm not sure if you're aware of the solar farm that's on Newcastle Avenue across from Eden Park.
Okay,
Well,
yeah, yeah,
it's a solar farm. They call it a solar farm. It's solar panels that the Wilmington Housing Authority uses that the solar to generate their electricity. And so the company that actually built that farm was going to go to a temp agency. Omar, I cannot believe this. Like, they were going to go to the temp agency to get workers. And so I was so happy and felt so privileged to be in a position to say, listen, you do not need to go to no temp agency to get workers when we have residents in Southbridge that are unemployed and need jobs. So I was able to sponsor two job fairs to get the applicants from Southbridge and the east side in the system to be able to have the opportunity to apply for those jobs. So jobs, and as I said, youth services and programs, and mental health services would be the number one and on the east side and in Southbridge. When you look at Christina Landing and Justice and Landing, okay, that's a whole different community.
right,
They're concerned, about like zoning. So you have Christina Towers right there off of Market Street Bridge. Hey, they want to feel safe. They're concerned about the fast cars that are coming up over that Market Street Bridge. They're concerned about more traffic lights. They're concerned about infrastructure over there. They're concerned about what the plans are, what's in the pipeline, for the development over on South Market Street. So that's the concern for the riverfront. When you look downtown, they're concerned now about, businesses are concerned about, you know, um, sustainability as it relates to the economics of Wilmington. Now, if you own a business, our businesses were already on life support during the COVID season. So when the protest took place, it just kicked everything like right over the fence. They were already on life support
right.
because we were sheltered in. And
Yeah, it
that
was like,
Monday,
yeah,
yeah, when we were about to open, we had the process, the looting and things of that nature. So sustaining and growing our economic engine, that's important to the people that live downtown. And then when you move over to Midtown Brandywine and Trinity vicinity, like right now, they have a major project going on with Delmarva Power that was not as organized as it could have been. So me
mhm,
being an advocate, being able to connect with the mayor's office to make sure that my constituents in Midtown Brandywine wasn't feeling like, they were not being considered in terms of their needs as they work along with Delmarva Power. So I would say job creation, um, you know, um, economic sustainability and growth. services for our youth, and also services for our seniors. And also, like I said, neighborhood revitalization is very, very important. So making sure people have housing, making sure our youth have services, making sure that our homeless and those that need help, whether it's mental health services, um, or narcotic users, we have some work to do. And I do feel as though COVID has kicked in some of these ills that we're dealing with and kicked them up to a whole nother level. So I think it's going to be very important that we as city elected officials work closer with our state elected officials, because they got the deep pockets when it comes to health and social services and human services. So the state, they got the checkbooks, and we, as the city elected officials, we're going to have to work closer together, and we're going to have to just make sure that we all are doing our best, because many hands make light work. So those are the areas, and everything is based on what the needs are right now. So the needs right now, are what they are right now. But what I did put in place before we came on recess, meaning the council, I put in place legislation to start a fourth district community task force. A fourth district community task force. And the purpose of that task force is that I'm going to have one or two people from every community from the fourth district to come and be a member of the committee to share the top three priorities from each one of those communities, because it's not enough for me as an elected official to say, from my lenses and where I stand, this is good for Midtown, this is good for Christina Landon, this is good for Southbridge. Yes, I'm on the ground, I'm at the table, but I'd rather have individuals from those communities come and tell me, based on my feedback from each one of those communities, these are our three top priorities. So that committee will convene in September.
But that's a good thing because you're getting the residents involved, because a lot of
Yes,
people sit back and complain, but they,
yes.
they don't, but they're not actually, they don't get involved in terms of dealing with solutions. So that's
Well,
a
we're
great
going
thing.
to see. You're absolutely right, because, again, everybody, I feel, Omar, we all have a role to play. The
Right.
Wilmington Police Department, the Chief of Police, the Attorney General, the Mayor, your City Council, your County Council, General Assembly, or Congress members. We all have a part to play, including the community. Including the community. And so that is one of the goals of the the committees that we're going to formulate, in addition to the fourth district task force. But the four areas that I mentioned around youth, community policing, mental health, and education is going to basically be community based as well, because no longer can you just toss things over the fence for somebody else to work on it and to get it done. If you have a good idea, if you see something you feel as though needs to be done, come on, we can work together to get it done. So I am looking forward to, getting the task force together and to find out, who's really, serious about working from their communities, and so we can work together and get these things done.
Okay, Michelle, we have about 5 minutes remaining. So I'm gonna
Okay.
let you close out and tell the
Okay.
audience why you should be reelected for a second term. And then if anyone wants to get in contact with you in terms of volunteering or making a donation, how can they reach you?
Okay, so I will just start off by saying this. There's an old adage that says when they tell you, what they're going to do, you ask the question, what you've done. And so I just, shared with the community, my constituents and those that have tuned in, what I've been doing. I didn't get a chance to mention, working with my council colleagues to renovate Eden Park. That was a $2.3 million renovation that took me working along with my council colleagues. That's in Southbridge. I talked about the job fairs. I'm on the east side. There's a fitness center in Herman Holloway Park. I work with Council President and AARP when they look for where a fitness park should be, it could have been in any district within the city of Wilmington. But because we had 3 senior centers right there and it's a fitness park, we identified the fitness center to be right there in Herman Holloway Park. I was able to touch base with some of the businesses to connect them with some of the youth directors that are on the east side primarily, to be able to reach out to them for funding. So I want to continue the work that I've already started. I feel as though one of the main responsibilities is really being there for the people, being an advocate, having their back and fighting hard for them and getting results. I've gotten results in Southbridge. I've gotten results in Midtown Brandywine, $100,000 pocket park, leveraging local government, pulling money together in Trinity vicinity, a grant for youth services for this budget, a grant for the Children's Museum, a grant for the Wilmington Public Library. So I'm already doing the work, and I want to continue the good work that I've already started, and I want to include the community to help me so we can move the city of Wilmington forward.
Okay, now how can people contact you for volunteer or make a donation?
Okay, yes, you did say that. So they can reach out to harleemh@gmail.com. Harlee, HARLEEMH@gmail.com. They can just email me and they can just let me know how they would like to get involved, if they want to volunteer in any capacity. And if they would like to donate, they can also reach out to me on that particular email as well.
Okay, when does council go back in session?
August the 22nd. As a matter of fact, we already got our agenda for August the 22nd. I want to encourage the community to go out to WilmingtonCityCouncil.com. That's where you can find out when we're having meetings, what the agendas look like, what we're voting on, committee meetings, council meetings, legislation. All of that information is right there. And I also want to encourage constituents to call constituent services. If there's an issue with their water, their trash, trees needing to be trimmed, anything that deals with services, we have a constituent services department that is there to handle the services for our constituents. And then if they don't get the response that they're looking for, then they can call their council members. But I encourage them because they get quicker service calling to constituent services.
Right, and you're still meeting through Zoom. You're still not meeting in person, right?
That's correct. We are still meeting in the Zoom room. And I just want to say, Omar, thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you for what you do in the community, you know, bringing information, people that are bringing information to the community. And I really appreciate that. And thank you so much.
Thank you. You're a wonderful guest. And I do thank the audience for tuning in. Until next time, have a safe evening.
Thank you, Omar. Take care. Bye.
All right, I see you. Bye-bye.